Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another video. Thanks for joining me once again. So in today's video, I'm just making another one because I'm on a roll at the moment, actually making a lot of videos. Maybe circumstances permit it, but I think I might as well keep the ball rolling, and it's enjoyable for me to do. So what I'm going to talk about today is my existing collection, but just one band. So where we're up to in the alphabet, following from Carnal Forge, is one of my favorite Norwegian black metal bands. The band in question is Carpathian Forest. So I'm going to talk about all of the albums by them which I own today. So before I get into that, I have some more Norwegian black metal playing in the background. You may have heard. This is Immortal with Northern Chaos Gods. So this band and album need no introduction. All I'll say is that this was the comeback album. Actually, the other day, maybe a couple of weeks ago, marks the 3-year anniversary of this album. So hard to believe it's been 3 years already, but yeah, classic return to form. This was, of course, the album which they released after Abbott had already parted ways with the band. So this was Demonaz and Hog as the duo, and I think recorded with Peter Tugtren, the producer. He played bass, and Demonaz took over vocal duties. Like, absolutely brilliant, fast, brutal black metal album. A real return to form in terms of their early days. Like, the way I describe this to people, it's got the speed and the ferocity of albums like Pure Holocaust, but also the catchiness and like some of the riffing style from Damned in Black. So I think of it like as a cross between Pure Holocaust and Damned in Black, which is certainly not a bad thing, both great albums. Yeah, really, really good, like very impressed, and this has stood the test of time. Like maybe some people thought at the time, this is that hype and excitement of the new album coming out, but really it's still fantastic, and like the ferocity and the brutality on this album is certainly maintained. So some of my favorite tracks on this, Gates to Blashik is probably my favorite, great atmosphere in that song. Also, Where Mountains Rise and Mighty Raven Dark. They're my top 3 probably, but the whole album is a fantastic listen, so you probably know it. If you don't, check it out. That's Immortal with Northern Chaos Gods. Okay, so Carpathian Forest, a Norwegian black metal band which has been around since the 90s. A little bit different. What's interesting about them was, although they were around from the early days, they had this kind of self-imposed exile from the Norwegian black metal scene. So they were never involved in that Helvete shop or Black Circle or anything like that. They were sort of distanced from the scene. But they're one of my favorite Norwegian black metal bands for sure. Like in terms of atmosphere, quality, I think really a brilliant band. So I can't do an albums ranking for this band, unfortunately, because believe it or not, I don't own all of the albums. I own, in terms of full-length albums, which I'm going to show on CD, I've got 4. I've also got 1 on vinyl, which I've already shown, and an EP on vinyl, Skjend Hanslik, but today I'm just talking about full-length albums. So these 4, they're all classic in my opinion, so we'll just get started with that straight away. Okay, so first of all, this is Carpathian Forest with Through Chasm, Caves and Titan Woods. This was the band's debut release. Came out in 1995, I think. There's the disc. And I'm glad to have the original pressing of this. Like I've seen in recent years, it's only come out in black and white, but of course, the original print, it came with the crimson and purple fonts. So like I got this copy in 99. Yeah, I just still love it to this day. Like classic Norwegian black metal. It really is true that Norwegian bands have a particular sound, and this band is very characteristic of that. Like, yeah, it's just that amazing classic sound which you know and love. This one, let's see, it's sort of like quite standard Norwegian black metal, but I still think this band's a little bit original because it's not blast beats all the time. Like they do a lot of mid-pace and catchy beats in it. Like for example, in the songs Carpathian Forest and The Pale Mist Hovers Towards the Nightly Shores, the vocals are fantastic, like really grim and devilish sounding, you know, that kind of gurgly, trollish kind of sound. It's really cool. They also have track 4, When Thousand Moons Have Circled. I'm reading that without the because it doesn't include that. But yeah, that's sort of emulating Emperor, going for that kind of pseudo-symphonic sound with the keyboards. But yeah, that's what I love about those 3 songs. Carpathian Forest, The Pale Mist Hovers Towards the Nightly Shores, and When Thousand Moons Have Circled. It's raw, but there's also a lot of melody and there's also a lot of atmosphere. So they've got that balance just right on this. And great guitar solo on the second track as well. Yeah, really, really cool. And the other 2 tracks, they've got some slower ones. So track 3 is The Eclipse / The Raven. that's like an acoustic, atmospheric one, like very dreamy. You know, actually with the words from the poem The Raven, actually, but very atmospheric song, very dreamy. I really like that. And also track 5, Journey Through the Cold Moors of Fascination, I think. Yeah, like just very atmospheric, cold and bleak sounding, yet so majestic. It's absolutely brilliant. So like, if you want a snapshot, imagine if you're unfamiliar with this kind of music, you want a snapshot of Norwegian black metal in the 90s. This is a great album to have a look at. Also cool portraits of the band. So this is when they were just a two-piece with Nutfrost and Norwegian. And yeah, that's it. So classic debut EP release, Carpathian Forest through Chasm Caves and Titan Woods. Excellent. All right. So, up next, the next one I've already spoken about in a vinyl update. Actually, well, not a vinyl update, a vinyl collection video, so I don't need to say too much about it today. This is Carpathian Forest with Morbid Fascination of Death. So yeah, as I said, I've got this one on vinyl and I've spoken about it in a previous video, so if you haven't seen that video, I'll link that up in the description so you can go and watch that, so I don't waste your time duplicating information, which I've already spouted out. But yeah, here we go, there's the disc, the wrist, the knife on the wrist, quite cool Morbid design there. Yeah. And you see, this is where they've extended the lineup to 5 members. So you still have Nutfrost and Norwegian, who was on the way out, and then they got some new members. So Vrungsin, was he bass? Yeah, I think he was playing bass actually. And then Chort, formerly of Emperor, he joined his guitar, and A Cobro on drums. So this is when they became a 5-piece. Except as I said, this was when Norwegian was on the way out, so he actually left after this album, I think. Okay, but what can I say about this album? As I mentioned in the vinyl video, this is like an interesting cross between like sort of symphonic atmospheric black metal. When I say symphonic, it is a little bit orchestral and they use classical elements like piano and synthesizers, but it's also when the band was going in a sort of like rock and roll black metal direction. And it's quite interesting because in general you think of symphonic atmospheric black metal bands and then you think of rock and roll black metal bands, but this band seemed to blend those two styles together, which is unusual and unique, but it just works so brilliantly on this album. So like some really just great rocking catchy songs, yet it's still grim and it's still very dark, so absolutely amazing stuff. Some of my favorite tracks on this would be, as I mentioned in that vinyl video, Doomed to Walk the Earth as Slaves of the Living Dead, Knuckleman, which has just got that catchy crunching march, it's fantastic. Also Warlord of Misanthropy. And talking about some more atmospheric tracks, I really like Cold Comfort. That's perhaps my favorite track on the album actually. That's not really a metal song, it's where they use piano and saxophone, it's like, and some classical instruments, but just like this amazing atmosphere where you think of the landscapes of Norway in winter, something like that, but it's really evocative kind of music. So Cold Comfort would probably be my favorite track. Also, they also do a cover of Mayhem's Ghoul, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so nothing to complain about here, like just brilliant stuff, and they combine those two styles really well. I also like the fact about this band, they're a bit experimental, like no black metal bands really include saxophones in their music, but this band does, and it really works so well. Comes with a killer booklet, which I haven't shown because on the vinyl version you only get the front cover, but yep, so cool portraits of the band, very morbid imagery, readable lyrics as well. And this is when the band was going through that sort of like, going for that kind of filthy, depraved, beady, S&M, perverted kind of concept with their music and imagery, which that was original for the time compared to what a lot of bands were doing, where it's all like majestical, wearing capes or standing in the forest, something like that. This band was more sort of like gritty and just in your face, and like it's a unique take on it, but at the same time still very black metal kind of imagery, which is cool. Yeah, and there's a classic photo. Oh yeah, this one, I like the one of Nutfrost here. He's holding 2 bottles of vodka, a bottle of Finlandia and Stolichnaya. Yeah. Oh, and that's Nina Hex. She did some backing vocals on a couple of tracks. Yeah. Yeah. So if you haven't heard this album, definitely recommend it. Like, it really just blends rock and roll black metal and symphonic or slash orchestral black metal together really well, and some of the best atmospheres I've heard. Like, completely original, unique. It's been done by no other band, and I just love it. So, misanthropic black metal, in case you didn't know. That's Carpathian Forest with Morbid Fascination of Death. Alright, so coming up next, this is Carpathian Forest with Defending the Throne of Evil. Okay, and I just cracked the case. Fucking brilliant. This one is quite old though. I did buy it in like 2003 or something, so I'll just fix this for a moment. Yeah, so there we go. Very nice cover art here. And I'll let you in on a little secret, just dead giveaway, spoiler. This is my favorite Carpathian Forest album of all time. In my opinion, this was the pinnacle of their work, like absolutely brilliant. And I'm going to the detail in a moment. You have this, I used to have the t-shirt of this album actually, but it got too small for me. But yeah, very cool imagery once again. Like their art direction plays a big role in portraying their kind of music, what it stands for and everything, and I think they do that really well. So this album came out in 2003, and how would I describe it? Again, it's rock and roll black metal combined with symphonic black metal, except this goes in an even more symphonic direction. Like, I even find, some people may disagree with me, but I think it's becoming very Emperor-esque. Like, think of, in some ways it's comparable to Emperor's In the Nightside Eclipse. Not in its entirety, but certain aspects, like the songs with the keyboards, and it does actually sound orchestral, so I'm not using the term symphonic lightly, but seriously, yeah, it does apply to a lot of these tracks. But at the same time, they've got some brilliant rock and roll catchy tracks as well, some like mid-paced songs. Yeah, a really good variety on this album. And all of the tracks though, they just blend so well together with consummate ease, where it just forms and constitutes this dark, majestic masterpiece. And in my opinion, I'm not exaggerating when I say that. So I'll just show you the booklet, the same kind of imagery as Morbid Fascination with Death. And pretty much the same lineup on this album, except Norwegian had left, of course, but everyone else was still in there. Okay, and they actually include this interesting thing. Yeah, the Carpathian Forest 10 Commandments. So it's sort of like an extreme statement. But yeah, two of which are, you are nothing, you are absolutely nothing. Yeah, there you go. But yeah, so I think I've given a general description of this music, but so many good songs on this album. Some of my favorites though would be Hans Lick, which, remember, I own the vinyl EP of that, but Hans Lick is just like a dark, haunting masterpiece, very orchestral and symphonic with the keyboards in that song. Like, it's absolutely brilliant. Ancient Spirits of the Underworld, very catchy. Another one of my favorites, as people may know, is Spill the Blood of the Lamb. Like, again, just very symphonic, haunting and dark, and you know, like the climax of that song, that's an eargasm to me. Like, such a brilliant track. So in fact, yeah, they're two of my favorites anyway, Hans Lick and Spill the Blood of the Lamb. Also, One with the Earth has got a great crunching groove and so catchy, really, really good. Christian Incoherent Drivel is a good song, especially the outro. It's very eerie and haunting, you know, where they say, the future is dark and violent, Carpathian Forest wants you dead. Maybe when I say it, it doesn't do it justice, but listen to the music, it's just absolutely phenomenal. And then they also experiment with some other great stuff on this, like The Old House on the Hill. It's like this kind of haunting, eerie, folky sounding track, and it's this song about this strange old man who lives in this deserted house on the hill sharpening knives. It's really creepy and ghoulish, that song, so I love that. Also, another favorite track for me is Necrophiliac / Anthropophagus Maniac, which is interesting because it's sort of like incorporating the gore and violence of death metal, but like it is so symphonic and black metal, like so much atmosphere with the keyboards in that song, so haunting and eerie. It is a gem, it's a masterpiece, that song. So Necrophiliac Anthropophagus Maniac. Now the closing track, also phenomenal for me, Cold Murderous Music. I would go as far as saying that song, Cold Murderous Music, is one of my favorite Carpathian Forest songs of all time. It's not a metal song again, a bit like Cold Comfort. It's just using piano, keyboards, and saxophone, but it is so eerie, dark, and haunting. Brilliant, brilliant, majestic atmosphere, and like it's actually quite creepy and disturbing too. Like it just invokes this really dark, haunting, disturbing atmosphere, but at the same time it's so majestic and atmospheric. So definitely listen to that song if you haven't heard it, called Murderous Music. But honestly, no bad tracks on this. There's like millions of others, well not, there's loads of others, like It's Darker Than You Think, The Well of All Human Tears, blah blah blah, pretty much every track, so it's all great. But my favorites, Shendhan's Lick, Spill the Blood of the Lamb, Necrophiliac, Anthropophagus Maniac, and Cold Murderous Music. So as I said, this is my favorite Carpathian Forest album of all time. I strongly recommend you check it out if you haven't heard it, because you will not be disappointed if you like haunting, atmospheric, symphonic Norwegian black metal. So there you go, Carpathian Forest with Defending the Throne of Evil. 10 out of 10 for me, hands down. I say that without hesitation. Alright, and believe it or not, I've just got one more album to show. So, as I said, I've got some gaps in the collection. I don't own Strange Old Brew and, was it like Black Shiny Leather? And there's a couple of other ones. I will fill the gaps. It's just, you know how it is sometimes, like so many bands, so little time, you don't get around to all of them. But there's nothing I dislike by Carpathian Forest that I've heard anyway. So, coming up to the last one that I own, this is Carpathian Forest with Fuck You All. Okay, and you see this one. It comes in this cool tin-like cover. And it's got some illustrations here, done by Nut Frost. I think he drew all these like Morbid kind of comics in it. And yeah, so you've got the booklet. Also very cool layout once again, like very atmospheric. Just brilliant. Vrangsin. Yeah, so you see the kind of comics he drew, they're really interesting. And he said that was during a time when he was very sick and going through some personal problems, I think. But yeah, it's actually, mesmerizing, some of this artwork. Okay, so what's to be said about this album? Apart from the fact that the lyrics are unreadable, because I find the script too small. This is pretty much the same lineup. You've still got Nut Frost, Short, Vrangsin, and Cobro, but there was one addition of personnel, and that was the guitarist Blood Perverter. He played as a live member before this album, and I think probably after he joined them on tour, I'm guessing they said, yeah, you might as well be in the band. But I really feel, I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but I really felt that he brought something to this band. He brought a thrashier element to this band. So as I said, this band has always been like symphonic, atmospheric, crossed with rock and roll black metal, but then he brought a notably thrashy element, unless that's coincidence and they just happened to go in that direction. But I believe it was probably Blood Perverter who brought that to the album. So yeah, again you've got rock and roll black metal, but some symphonic parts. And some of my favorite tracks on this, there's so many, but like Vi åpner portalen til helvete, which I believe translates to We Open Portals to Hell, and The Frostbitten Woodlands of Norway. Those first two tracks, very standard, in a brilliant way, Norwegian black metal with a lot of keyboards, atmospheric, it's dark, brilliant. Also, then you've got some like more sort of like rock and roll tracks that they do, but like very, very catchy, like Start Up the Incinerator, Here Comes Another Useless Fool. That was the full title. And also Submit to Satan, very catchy song, like catchy rock and roll songs. Now, the songs where they incorporate some thrashier elements are Diabolicism, The Seed and the Sower, also Djupfrist, Det Mitt Helvete. Sorry, that was probably total butchery, but tracks 5 and 6, there is a really thrashy element to those songs, like almost Slayer-esque, where you've got that thrash groove and you're tapping your head along. But like, I used to always like tracks 1 and 2 as my favorites, but like more recently I've got into 5 and 6 because they've got such a hypnotic groove with those thrash elements. And as I said, that's probably due to Blood Perverter. Then you've got another great, some of my other favorite tracks, Every Day I Must Suffer, just a great catchy rock and roll black metal track where you can almost sing along to. It's really got that rock and roll sentiment, which is fantastic. And then also, Jesus, I've mentioned nearly all of it, but track 9, Evil Egocentrical Existentialism, like a very somber, eerie kind of introduction to that song. Really good. And also track 10, Shut Up, There Is No Excuse to Live, just obnoxious rock and roll black metal, but it's just really, really catchy. Like, it's funny, when this album first came out, I think because of other things I was listening to at the time, I didn't pay it much attention, but lately I've given this more attention and it actually grows on me more and more. So perhaps that's a sign of how good it is. Those albums which take a while to grow on you, they can turn out to be the best. But like, to this day, like, I bought this one whenever it came out, like 2006, 2007, but lately I've been listening to it a lot, and with good reason. You should definitely check it out if you haven't. But yeah, it's showing again that this band is building, like, they've always had a certain bass sound, but they build on it with new influences, so that's really cool. I think this was the last studio album they did, and they've been permanently on hold since then, so I've heard a lot of people saying, oh, we'd really like to hear another album from them. Yes, I would too, except not sure if that's going to happen, but if this was the last one, it was a good one to finish with anyway, but let's hope there's another album. So, this is Carpathian Forest with Fuck You All. Okay, so, believe it or not, that's it for this video. So, they're my 4 CD albums, which I own by Carpathian Forest, and as I said, they're one of my favourite black metal bands in the Norwegian scene. So, if you haven't heard them, I implore you to check those albums out, because they're all brilliant. Alright, so, up next, I've got another band collection, which I'm going to talk about in my next video. Again, that won't be a ranking discographies, because I don't own all of the albums, but it will be a good chunk of albums from the same band, so I look forward to doing that soon. In the meantime, guys, take care, and thanks a lot for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it and made it till the end. Thanks as always for your support of this channel. Don't forget to leave me a thumbs up to show me some support. I'd really appreciate it, and hope to see you in the next video. In the meantime, take care. See you later. Cheers.